I followed that, Jesse. That was very good. So I'm Glynn, Lloyd, and I've been involved with urban farming now going on almost a decade, about 2 decades and a half. So it's been a fun journey to kind of watch the evolution. About 20 years ago, I started my company, City Fresh Foods, and just around that same time, I actually got on board with the Food Project way back in the day. Before they were actually doing urban work, they were in Commonwealth and Lincoln. But to see the evolution of this movement is very inspiring. I don't have a short time, but I wanted to focus on one aspect of this movement, which is really about the people. And it's been mentioned by the commission about, I think the word was used, farm entrepreneurs. And I guess today we're talking about urban farm entrepreneurs. And I'm trying to stall so my technology can catch up to me. But it's really, I've actually had the opportunity to work with different teams of people over the years. And I got to tell you, my involvement with, most recently with these farmers, they just blow me away. The commitment, the spirit, the intelligence, the capacity. And we just had a group of trainees that came through the Urban Farming Institute, where these folks are leaders, and they're going to be leaders in this movement. So I'm actually just humbled to be kind of representing these folks. I'm trying to get their picture up. Is it coming up soon? But I'll just keep going. You can picture them. And one in particular, actually, I want to highlight. Actually, he's here today. I'm not going to embarrass him, but his name is Bobby. And folks who know urban farming, they know Bobby. Give him a hand. The story of Bobby is at the age of 9, he was an avid gardener already. And now, I don't know how old you are now, Bobby. I think he's 20 somewhere. But he is really a master urban farmer. And he is actually our first farmer trainer for the Urban Farming Institute. And he works with the trainees year in, year out. And also someone else I was going to highlight is Tristan Keith, who last year was our farm manager for City Growers, which is the for-profit side of what I'm involved with, where we have small plots right now in the Boston area, growing intensively. And Tristan's story very quickly is he came on the farm as a volunteer about 3 years ago. He's from Dorchester. Then he took the program, he went to the training program. And last year, he was the urban farming manager for us in 3 years. And we're going to talk to some numbers, but this past year, on just over half an acre of land, we did $50,000, right? About $1.70 a square foot. That's under the leadership of someone who's been doing this for 3 years. So we're learning organizations, we learn here, we pass that information on. But actually, to me, it's just an incredible story. And then he's also, there's my first picture. So I don't know, it's kind of, the lighting's not the best in here, but that actually represents some of the enterprise team where folks are growing aggressively for the market, and also some of the trainees. They're on the land that day together. And we can go to the next slide. Yeah, that's Bobby, you'll see it today throughout the audience, so please grab them. And that's Trish, who I just mentioned. And they're joined by McD, a local resident. He's an architect, and he was on the enterprise team. One of the hardest working brothers in Boston, I say. And Asada, I call her the truth teller. But that just gives you the kind of the human kind of face to the folks who been really moving this movement. And Jamie is actually a former restaurant owner who actually has a lot of relationship with the local restaurants and actually acts as account manager and kind of our sales. And McD, Jamie, Tris, a little bit of my time really is the enterprise team that's really been trying to figure out how do we get to economic sustainability as quickly as possible. And I actually think we have the formula to do that. And we're actually, we're not alone in this. We're all working hard together to figure out how we can less rely on the foundation dollars, more rely on the market, which I've been pushing myself over the years. So the question is, how do we support these urban farms? Essentially, that's what we're here to do, I think, not only from the nonprofit world, but the private sector, the city, state. And we realize that there's some missing pieces of this movement. And so about 2 years ago, really from the community perspective, we created the Urban Farming Institute. And it's got a couple of functions. The first function is land, and I know we're going to be talking about land a little bit later this morning. And how do we get the land into the urban farming hands where it's actually, It's not too costly, and it makes sense for us to get on there. And so we have some unique partnerships in the Boston area that I know we're looking to share with folks here today. And the other piece is farmer training. And one thing about the movement around the Urban Farming Institute and city growers, when we talk about urban farming, most of the vacant land, at least in Boston, is in communities of color. And we said, listen, we want to make sure that it's the folks close to this land, not only participating, but really leading this movement. And so the farming training program, we look at folks who are recruiting, they really represent the communities where this land is. And you need nonprofit dollars to do that. The private market's not going to support so much the land acquisition piece and the training piece. And so we realized we have to kind of work through the nonprofit world to help subsidize. And finally is, policy and advocacy. Now when we started this a few years ago in Boston, it wasn't legal to sell to market. And luckily, through a lot of efforts from a lot of people in this room, we've actually changed the laws. So now, with Article 89, we can have these conversations legally, behind closed doors. I put this slide in quickly because I think it highlights some uniqueness to urban farming. That's how we bring our soil in many cases. And I just want to say there's unique opportunities with urban farming because a lot of what we throw away as city dwellers can be turned into soil and compost. And I think there's amazing opportunities when we look at the waste stream. And that's just a little sample of one of our farms. And how we did it over the years is we have the small plot method. We farmed on 4 plots. Now this is the enterprise team, the city grower to be clear. And we have a centralized kind of where we wash and where we distribute from. And I guess, I'll be honest with you, we're figuring it out as we've been going along. But in our urban communities, most of the land is coming in small pieces, right? It's coming in 8, 10, 12,000 square foot. So how do you really leverage and use those locations? We still have some bigger chunks that we'd love to kind of get to urban farming in partnership with the developers in our urban communities. But we saw this as because of the vacant land issue in our community. How do we, make it productive? And I think we've done a good job of that. And I mentioned the mechanics, briefly on the 4 plots and $1.70 square foot. And these guys were harvesting, 4 days a week, and really going to the wholesale market to be clear about it. And that means we were selling to niche retailers, small retailers, and also restaurants, and even some of the institutional food service providers. And I got to say, this year I'm very excited. We worked on a couple of farmers market, and one in particular is on Bode Street. We work with the Bode Street Health Center, and so that's a situation where you have that product that comes out of the community, staying in the community, right? And there's a whole thing around access and so on and so forth. But I think to a certain extent, we're trying to move more in that direction. But really, the goal here has been to try to get as much dollar back to the farmer so we can make this sustainable. And again, we'd love to have more of those discussions with folks in the room. I think what's interesting about urban farming too is we're connected to the market. And so you have these things called food hubs and these commissary kitchens, and this is where it gets exciting too. We can do value added. So we're in conversations with Commissary Kitchen to leverage some of their storage space. How do we use their kitchens to add value? Again, how do we get that dollar back to our urban farmers? And I'm going to say too, there's no way that we're going to be growing all the food in urban neighborhoods. We know that, and so it's linking in with our rural farmers and expanding those markets so more folks are attuned with where their food comes from. And before Rose comes in and starts waving the red flag at me, I just want to talk about all the partnerships and connections and collaborations that really go into doing this. And it's not just us, I think it's everyone at the table here. And again, on the land piece, just quickly, we have a very unique relationship with the Trust for Public Land, who said, hey, you know what? We can come in and get these parcels of land farm ready. We know how to acquire land. That's our specialty. And then we have a relationship with the Dudley David Inc., which is part of DSNI. He said, we know the community relationships. We can hold this land long term. And without the city, it doesn't work. And the city says, hey, you know what? Where it's appropriate, we'll move land out to open space into urban farming. It's a unique partnership. And then where U of I comes in, the Urban Farming Institute, figures out how to get the farms on to steward the land. And so I'm really excited about that. And actually, it's been amazing because it's like everyone has a role to play. It's a win-win-win. And I think we've been getting along pretty well. Right, so the middle, some of the middle partners there, I just got to highlight, is without technical assistance and capital, this stuff doesn't work. Wholesome Way came in early to take some risk with us. Conservation law ventures, actually the ventures, I think Jenny's here going to talk about it. They did some research, looking at this market. So everyone's kind of played a role. And up at Sportsman's Tennis Club, how you do urban farming, it's about community relationships. And so when we go into the neighborhoods, and I'm from the neighborhood, we say, look, this is what we're up to do. And it's really about the community embracing and supporting. And that's how these things start to move. And so we have a great relationship with a lot of neighborhood organizations in Boston who want to see more open space. They want to keep it open space. They want to connect to their food supply and their food system. So it's really kind of from a ground up perspective. And then finally on the left side is the market side. We can't do this if folks aren't willing to pay good dollars. And so City Feed's been one of our first customers. So I got to put their logo up there. They've been great with us. And City Fresh Foods that's my company, but they're a food institutional buyer. And some stories for that stuff. And Stillman's Farm is a farm that we work closely with, doing seedlings, and they come in and help work with us from the rural side. So I'm going to end with this. Why are we doing this? Why am I doing this? Because I actually think that when we pull it back and we look at the conventional food system, we're like in trouble. And we have to think about new ways of producing food. And I think it's going to be more of a localized system. And so we have to try it. And that's what we're trying to do. So I'll end with that.